Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and we've got some exciting news this morning we brought you at the outset of the show.
Yeah.
Bring to you again, because I don't want people to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, investment opportunity.
Oh, yeah. People, listen up. This is big.
You thought probably you're just a little guy. You'll never have a chance to invest in government housing, in homeless shelters, in tree equity. Well, you'd be wrong, thanks to Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
This is Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, and I am proud to announce that as a Chicago resident or individual investor, you can now invest directly in our beloved city by purchasing Chicago social bonds. These social bonds will fund a portion of the Chicago Recovery Plan, which is making $1.2 billion in equitable, transformative investments in our city. The Chicago Recovery Plan includes nearly $1 billion in affordable housing projects, $117 million in homelessness and transitional housing support, $110 million in community economic development, $46 million for the largest tree planting initiative in the city's history, and $41 million for full light-duty city vehicle electrification over the next 5 years. The first series of social bonds to fund the Chicago Recovery Plan will be sold in the week of January 16, 2023, and will fund essential projects such as the construction of more than 2,000 units of affordable housing, the establishment of safe and clean emergency shelter space for people experiencing homelessness, the cleanup and sale of over 5,000 vacant city lots, and the planting next year of 15,000 trees citywide. These bonds are being offered exclusively to the residents of Chicago and individual investors before any banks or large investors. That means Chicagoans and individual investors will have the first pick when purchasing Chicago social bonds and investing in the future of our city and your community. To learn more about the STSC and to participate in this historic transaction that will transform our city, please contact your broker or visit chicago.gov/social bonds.
Brokers' lines are lighting up across the city, to be sure. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm taking all the money I made at FTX. I'm going to shovel it right into this bond program. When people ask me someday, hey, Dan, how'd you make all your money? I'm going to be able to say, the city's tree planting program.
$46 million for 15K trees. You're hugging a tree. We got a text message that said, if I invest in the city bonds program, what the heck do I get? An empty police car driving around? Oh, no, I want my name on a paddy wagon.
For more on this, Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, joins us. Ted, boy, this is a deal you want to get in on the ground floor of, right?
Well, you guys are slow. I've already purchased my bond.
Have you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the perfect example of kind of like the sign of the beginning of the end of Chicago in the current makeup. It's this is a great example of it's absurd. It's almost like an onion piece, right? You don't really know if it's true or not. And here you've got a junk-rated city, massive crime, got all these huge problems, and it's going to borrow its way to what she's calling the Chicago Recovery Plan. So it's really her equity program run amok. The second part of it is, I'm surprised. It's like a massive campaign thing for her, right? She's being able to use city resources, look at herself promoting it. You can be part of this. It's a perfect time to do this in her campaign. And, you can, like you said, you can fix housing problems. You can fix the root causes of crime, violence prevention, and all that. You can electrify the city's light duty fleet. So, but what's amazing behind this thing, Dan and Amy, is how this bond is structured, and there's little talk about that. And we talked about this a couple of years ago, where to make these bonds sell and to get them safe, they're selling implicit in this as collateral is the city's future sales tax revenues. They've collateralized away the future of Chicago into this bond so that people will buy it, and that's the real story behind everything. But it's a very complex issue, but it's something that should never be done.
Well, also, your colleague Mark Lennon over at Wirepoints explained this, and he's long time been a lawyer in this space, so he knows what he's talking about. The entity, the specific entity that's issuing the bonds, the Sales Tax Securitization Corporation, it had to be separate and distinct from the city so that it was essentially insulated from bankruptcy to guarantee return on those who would purchase these bonds, which also speaks to the financial state of the city, in addition to the politics of it. Rather than increase taxes to fund this Chicago recovery program, we'll get people who are, woke dopes to buy these bonds.
Yeah, and Mark hit on this really hard early on. It's like, and I love his term. Chicago's selling body parts to raise money, and that you're selling your future tax revenues. You're having to create something called bankruptcy remote so that the bankers will lend to it. Otherwise, it's a real mess for Chicago to raise money, given it's a junk rated city.
It's great stuff, and it's almost exciting as the snowplow naming contest. I don't know which will get more participation. I want to get to something else too that you wrote about over at Wirepoints. This is an interesting case. This case that is now being leveled up by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's going to hear a case about property taxation that becomes a government taking. And the example that was highlighted in the Minneapolis Star Tribune, 93-year-old woman in Minnesota lost her home to the government because she was delinquent in paying $2,300 in property taxes. The government took her home and then sold it for $40,000 and pocketed the difference. And we're going to get something. We're going to get some adjudication that may have particular relevance to property tax weary Chicagoans, Chicagolanders, if you will, which is when does property taxation become so usurious that it's a government taking?
Well, yeah. Well, there's two aspects to it. Is when can they just take your property, sell it, and keep the difference? And that's the big case that the Supreme Court's going to hear. And I think kudos to Mark for staying on top. It's Mark Lennon. He follows what the Supreme Court's doing, and this is a big Illinois problem, as we'll talk about right now. But it was Minnesota that brought it to light. And what's fascinating about this is that Minnesota's a troublemaker. But when the Pacific Legal Foundation did a deep dive into this problem, where the government's taking property for people who haven't paid their and sometimes very small amounts in property taxes, and the government's just taking the property or selling the property to others who take the entire property. Illinois is the biggest culprit of this.
Oh yeah,
by far.
These tax sales of property. I mean, they're guys that make a very handsome living pouring through the listing of tax sales.
Yeah, and I'm a little bummed that we didn't hop on this earlier, because I've seen this thing. You see Cook County announce all these properties they want to sell, and it's all weird stuff, but really laid it out well in this piece that the Minnesota wrote on, and then of course that Mark's really highlighted, is that they're able to take over your property or sell it. You sell your tax to somebody else. Somebody else pays it down. Then over a couple of years, if the person who didn't originally pay the property taxes doesn't pay them, then the person who bought the lien gets to take over the property and kick the person out and take over the property. And it's we had 4,700 cases of that. And the amount lost by people in equity in their homes was $400 million.
And they can never get the equity back? That's what you're saying,
No.
Ted?
You don't own the home. The home's taken. Yeah.
There are some exceptions and all that. But who's losing their homes too, right?
Seniors.
Not the people in Wilmette and Winnetka. It's lower income people. And you can see that in a map that the Pacific Legal Foundation puts. It's East St. Louis and South Cook. It's a fascinating thing that they get away with here.
Oh yeah, when you look at the listing of properties that are delinquent in their property taxes, I mean the south suburbs dominates in Cook County, and some of the south and west side neighborhoods too. So right, the great vanguard of lower to middle income minority families in Cook County, all these Democrat socialists, and yet who's losing their houses because of usurious property taxes?
Yeah, so so that's that part which the Supreme Court will hear. What they're not going to hear and what they don't talk about is the other kind of takings that in theory should be protected, and that's the outright property tax rates that we see in a lot of places in Illinois, especially in South Cook, where the rates are 7%, 8%, 12%, and it's crazy. And I remember Jeannie and I went down to Harvey to kind of raise that issue because nobody else would raise it down there, and it's fascinating when you see what houses sell for because it's such a mess that nobody wants to buy there anymore.
Yeah, well, I remember we've done many, as you know, property tax analyses at the newspapers I'm a part of. That's fake news, except the Chicago Press Corps is the real fake news that doesn't cover any of this, and certainly not with the level of detail. And the data is the data; it's indisputable. The community in Cook County that has the highest property tax rate as a percentage of home value is
where?
Ford Heights.
Oh, that's
one of the poorest community in Cook County, and one of the poorest communities in the country. 99.9% black. Tell me again about how you're the great protector of the downtrodden, the low-income families, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean,
such a scam.
Yeah, they're the great destroyers. I mean, all those policies destroy all those towns. Of course, the industry left, and then they never did anything to fix things. And it's not. I've always said it's not just the property tax amount, it's how they destroyed home values because when I was down there with Jeannie at the time, the homes in Harvey were selling in the neighborhoods where we were standing in were selling for $5,000, $7,000, $12,000. I thought it was a used car sales lot prices. No, these were homes, and it just shows you the destruction. And then the taxes never go down, and so that's how you end up with this really high taxes, really low home value, absurd percentage of your home that you're paying taxes.
Do you remember if the house was selling for $5,000, how much the property taxes were? Because it wasn't reflective of the sale price.
No, right. And so this is what happened. They'd be crazy, and that's why people would walk away. I wrote the story about the guy I met in Harvey in a subway. He's a young black guy, really nice guy, and we chatted. And I said, what do you do here? And he said, well, I'm just staying in my parents' home. They moved to Mississippi, and I'm still in it. And he said, well, they're trying to sell the home for $50,000. And I said, well, wow, that's really low. And he goes, no, that's not. He said, I don't think they're going to get $5,000 for it. And that's why I wrote the piece, because I couldn't believe that. I didn't know that homes could sell for $5,000.
Well, the homes are
Detroit.
The homes are effectively worth zero, and it's not just there. It's in middle income that used to be affluent communities too, like Flossmoor. Because if you have a $150,000 house and a $15,000 tax bill, which is a real example, then your home is essentially worth nothing. Because who's going to buy a home at that valuation to pay that property tax bill on an annualized basis? What, you're going to pay for your home 5 times over? Are you nuts?
That's right. Yeah, in 10 years you buy a house twice, right? So that's why the home values collapse, because there's no way somebody could actually buy that house at the price you want and pay the tax bill. So boom, they lower the home values, and you're stuck. You're screwed.
And that is theft. I wanted to ask you quickly, Governor Pritzker, he's speaking right now at the World Economic Forum to promote Illinois' accomplishments on the world stage. What did he accomplish?
Oh, well, come on. This is the perfect pitch that he does. He's paid down the bills. He got credit rating upgrades, quote, balance the budget. But he should add at the very end of that is, thank you for the nearly $200 billion in federal bailout money that allowed me to do that. But he won't say that part. But that's the reality. And that's what he'll pitch. He's made he's done all the green energy stuff. He's got a lot of stuff to pitch. His progressive bona fides.
And he's running for president.
Help me understand what's happening in Wisconsin, because I don't understand this. The Republican Party controls the legislature in Wisconsin, but they don't have the governorship, so they can't really pass anything substantial. And yet Wisconsin Republicans have proposed to lower the state's income tax from 7.65% to 3.25%.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was so? From Illinois Republicans, I understand that if you don't have control of anything, then you're not supposed to propose anything. You just sit there and take whatever the Democrats give you. So what are Wisconsin Republicans doing?
Yeah, or join in on what the Democrats
Or join in, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, here's where they're showing leadership. They may not get what they want because Evers is still there, but they're making a huge play and saying that they want to move. This is a fascinating thing. Go back 2 years when Pritzker was trying to get his progressive tax done in Illinois. You're seeing states across the country move towards flat tax rates, and that's what Wisconsin's trying to do. They want to have a 3.5 rate at the top, and they're showing some leadership and saying here's the direction we need to be in. And why? Because they're competing with other states for investment and for people. And we're not thinking that way. The Republicans here in Illinois aren't thinking that way. They don't know yet how to lead. Let's see if the new the new group can lead. But this is the leadership that these guys are showing in Wisconsin. Kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Ted Dabrowski, president at wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks as always, Ted.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I'm a physician, and I still see patients every day. And, so I tell my patients about this. And they ask me, well, what are you taking? And so I tell them, taking Balance of Nature. And they go, oh, yeah, I've heard about that. So I tell them how to get it. I give them your telephone number, 246-8751. And I tell them, call this number. And I said, they'll take care of you after that. So, I'm primary care. I really think that it works well for people to have fruits, vegetables.
Start your journey